Okay, everyone, we are live and streaming, and welcome to the ultimate trans debate. Today we will be debating the proposition: Are trans women real women? Now, you might be asking, why are we doing this random topic on a channel that doesn't really talk about social issues? Well, because I wanted to, and I thought it would be interesting because we've had a lot of private conversations about this issue, and I hold a pretty hot take because I don't really frequent many as you know, left wing servers, and I don't really consider myself left wing, but I take this very odd position. I'm pretty much the ultimate enigma politically. I was joking about this with my friend Justice. I can't remember exactly what I told him, but I was like, I'm an anti-capitalist, anti-state, anti-corporate, anti-feminist, pro-trans. I think I joked that I was like a term, like a trans inclusionary radical feminist or radical misogynist or something like that. But yeah. So today, so today for this, no, I'm a fucking lunatic. Don't take anything that I have to say seriously. Anyway, today, this epic debate we will be having. I have on my dear close friend, Mr. Aurelius, Foundational Philosophy. How are you doing, man?
I'm good. I'm having a pretty beautiful day. You pushed us back another hour, which was crazy. But it's,
Yeah, man.
it's
I'm
a nice
sorry about
day.
that. I just had to get some stuff done, but I'm sorry
You're
about
good.
that.
You're good. Got it all done. Got it. Everything's off your mind. You're ready to debate.
Yes, yes.
Hell yeah, man.
Yep. So we talked about this a little bit before the stream. I think you're gonna do the opening statement. Okay, I don't even, bruh. Why is this an issue? Okay, I'm just gonna not treat you seriously for the rest of the stream.
Cause it's fun. We're steel against steel. We're trying to increase our debate chops so that we can go up and debate Andrew Wilson from the
Why
Crucible.
talk about music when there's a genocide going on, Aurelius? Come on, man. There's
I
a
mean,
genocide going on. Why have a conversation about anything not about that?
music is about feelings, and that's kind of gay, So it's just like that they've got a point with that. But also, why talk
So
about
true.
genocide? Because that's about feelings, and that's also gay.
Yo, so true, so true. Actually, no, the only issue that matters is this one.
Yes,
That's
very
actually this is
specifically.
this is going to be the future of the channel. It's only going to be trans debates. So,
Right. Yeah.
understandable. My bad. Yeah, no worries, Grambo. We're just giving you shit. Um, but anyway, so yeah, so we talked about this before the show. I guess, and again, this is going to be for fun. It's not. I mean, we're not going to be like we're still going to try to be serious about this, but we're at the end of the day, we're friends, we're chill,
Yeah.
we're just having fun, and we're kind of just trying to introduce everyone to sort of the conversation. If you're pro trans and stuff like that, maybe hear out Aurelius. If you're in my audience and not a big fan of the sort of trans culture war, then maybe hear me out because again, I sort of came from the sort of conservative position on this, so it's kind of weird to um, be in this corner. But
I
yeah,
will
hey,
say
what's
that
up,
you're not
Adam?
going to get a Daily Wire argument out of
Yeah, no, I wasn't expecting you to. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Basic biology, actually.
me. Yeah.
yeah,
All right.
yeah. The
We ready to
Apache
begin?
attack helicopter. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Go ahead.
My guess is it's going to be well under 5 minutes.
Okay.
On the question of whether a male who identifies as a trans woman can be a woman, I propose that a male cannot be a woman. That the affirmative position that my interlocutor is taking is, in fact, a category error. I hold that the position that the categorization of man and woman as genders is false. One does not act out, perform, appear, express, nor feel man, nor does one act out, perform, appear, express, nor feel woman. Rather, being a man and being a woman is a marker of maturity for males and females, respectively. Instead, I propose that masculinity and femininity are themselves genders, rather than man and woman. Unlike man and woman, one does not one does act out, perform, appear, express, and feel masculinity and femininity. Masculinity and femininity have comparable and contrastable meanings between cultures. The categories of masculinity and femininity refer to the ideals for the individuals of each sex upon maturation. Masculinity for men, femininity for women. Cultures across space and time have had different conceptions of these ideals with varying levels of similarity. Additionally, individual men and women across history into the present act out, perform, appear, express, and feel varying levels or ratios of masculinity to femininity. Nevertheless, these ideal actions, performances, appearance, expressions, and feelings of men and women are not themselves the being of men and women. All that being said, words do not have intrinsic universal meanings. Rather, their meaning comes from how that they are used intersubjectively. These are called language games. They have contextual rules that guides how we use the words. This is a common angle of attack against those that reject the proposition that trans women are women. However, this angle rests solely on the greater utility of this language game in communicating information, as it is a modern construction for English that is not based on historical use or meaning. And even in this appeal to the utility of this new language game in communicating information, I think that the affirmation of the proposition fails as well. I propose that there is no more fitting terms to exclusively denote the maturation of an adult male and adult female, that men and women, respectively, are the most fitting terms. Likewise, I propose that there are no more fitting terms to exclusively denote the ideal actions, performances, appearances, expressions, and feelings of men and women than masculinity and femininity. As such, no male who identifies as a trans woman is a woman. To claim that they are is to play a language game motivated ideologically rather than by the history in the tradition of the English language games or by the utility of communicating information, or it is a category error. Thank you very much.
Okay, yeah, thank you for the opening statement. All right, cool. Well, I will give mine. Let me scroll up to the text here. All right, so I will be taking the affirmative position that trans women are women. And in order to do this, I'd like to lay out a couple of premises. Hang on, sorry. Let me take a. Actually, let me take a swig of water before I.
I got you nervous.
You did. Ah. But anyway, actually, let me just start over. Let me just start over because I need to take a swig of water before I started. So, all right. I'm going to be laying out the affirmative on the position that trans women are women. And in order to do this, I'd like to lay out a couple of premises. The first being that sex and gender are two distinct, separate descriptors. So I had a feeling that we would go here because that was the argument that you made, was that they're. But anyway, we'll get into that later.
Yeah,
yeah, of course. So I'd like to argue that sex at its core is a biological classification. So sex, like any definition, is hard to precisely pin down, of course, like you agreed, because there can and are, there can be and are many different outliers, but the typical characteristics that we look for basing on sexual classification would be things like hormones, chromosomes, reproductive anatomy, etc. Gender, on the other hand, involves a collection of roles, personality traits, identities that we have noticed or are heavily correlated with someone's biological sex. And this correlation of sex and gender, or in other words, gender identities themselves, are both socially constructed in some aspects and biologically rooted in others. So as an example, some gendered traits that are socially constructed are boys being associated with the color blue, women being associated with pink, men wearing suits, women wearing dresses, etc. So how do we know that these are in part social constructs? Well, we can point to other cultures or other periods of time where these roles were entirely flipped. High heels, men used to wear them. In Ireland, men used to wear skirts or kilts, or still do, actually. Actually, before the 1900s, blue used to be associated with girls, and pink was a man's color. Now, there are some theories that also argue that, things like dresses were entirely social constructs, but were instead based on biological realities. As an example, if the men were out hunting, doing manual labor, they did not have the freedom to dress in loose-fitting clothing, whereas women who stayed home doing non-manual labor did actually have more freedom to do that. Other gendered traits that likely owe a biological explanation would be increased rates of aggression and risk-taking in males. linked to higher amounts of testosterone in male bodies and things like higher sexual drives in men versus women. So, given that there is a true dichotomy between gender and sex, I'd like to move on to my second premise. And that premise is that when using terms like men and women in a social context, it makes far more sense and has far more utility to describe one's gender as opposed to their sex when referring to these terms. In our own colloquial use, we already do refer to one's gender. We say things like, when we say things like, I saw a man at the store today, we're not checking their chromosomes, we're not checking to see if their hormones are the right hormones, and we're not checking their genitalia. We're looking at the external behaviors and social characteristics and signals that classify one into a particular gender. In popular culture, when we refer to a female robot on TV, like Rosie, the maid in the Jetsons, we don't go by her sex because she has none. She's a robot. We are much closer to referencing gendered characteristics in a way to classify one as a man or a woman. When we name ships, we call them she, her. We give them female names, oceans. Hell, even in other languages like Spanish, we give entire sets of nouns genders. So, given this, I believe that when referring to men and women in a social construct, in a social construct, we should be in a social context, we should be looking to one's gender as opposed to one's sex. So finally, the third premise, given that there are people such as trans women, or whatever you want to call them, who align with the gendered characteristics of women, but have a biologically male sex, despite that fact, they should still be socially referred to as women and called male-female pronouns. Therefore, trans women are women. Now, as a final, few notes to clear up any confusion on this position. When I make this argument, it is not to say or argue that trans women are women in a biological sense. That it does deny
Basic biology. Okay, folks.
in a Ben Shapiro-esque context. When a trans woman, for instance, needs something done medically, and the doctor asks whether you are a man or a woman, it would not make sense, given this context, for a trans woman to say woman, because they are misunderstanding the doctor's use of language. When a doctor is asking that question, what they want to know is your biological, what they want to know is your biological sex, so they can perform the necessary procedures to keep that person alive and healthy. And finally, to round out my argument, I would like to propose the following hypothetical. Suppose you have a fictional nation named Eldoria. In Eldoria, the geography, people, culture, and demographics closely aligns with that of the United States. However, with one singular difference. Secretly, unbeknownst to anyone, an evil mad scientist in his secret lab has invented a machine that can reliably switch the consciousness of any two individuals who are placed inside of it. To test this machine, he kidnaps two unwilling subjects, a cis man and a cis woman, named Darren and Lucy, who do not know each other, and they're in their mid-20s. They're placed inside the machine at gunpoint, their consciousnesses are swapped. Once taken out of the machine, they are placed in a cage, and the mad scientist destroys the machine and all evidence of its invention. He frees the couple and releases them back into the real world to call the police, but before they're able to, unbeknownst to them, the mad scientist has somehow found a way to escape. He commits suicide, and his invention is lost forever. No one on the planet knows that the body switching machine is even possible, yet alone how to build one. The rest of the world are just like us, are under the impression that mind switching is science fiction. So when Darren and Lucy tell the police and their family the story, they are not believed. They are now stuck in a world where Darren, previously a biological male, now has the body of a woman. Lucy, previously a biological woman, now has the body of a man. And the two both understand that they are now stuck this way for the rest of their lives. If you were placed in that situation, how unbelievably horrific would that be? I'd like you, if you're a biological man or a woman, to imagine what being placed in that situation would look like. Your internal mind, or in other words, what your gender identity is, no longer aligns with your biological sex. Assuming you're straight, you would no longer look attractive to the, or dateable to the opposite sex that you would want to attract. Your chances of dating would be shattered in the same way that a severely ugly or disabled person would. You'd feel an alien. You'd feel like an alien in your own body. As a man, you can no longer fuck. As a woman, you can no longer get dick down by a man ever again. So your sex life would be ruined.
How
If
vulgar,
you
dude,
wanted
come
to,
on.
if you wanted to, if you wanted to identify as the gender you originally were when you were in your own body, aka act socially like the gender you originally were, so wear the same clothes, talk the same, act the same, put on the same makeup, for instance, if you were originally a girl, you would immediately become an outcast because no one would believe your story. And why would they? Body switching isn't real. You're just crazy. You have a mental illness. Your name is the one that it was originally attached to you, to that body. We're going to call you by the pronouns that are attached to your body, not your mind. Your own mind is irrelevant. You would be an outcast forever. Constantly, you'd get weird stares if you tried to express your own true gender identity. Maybe if you came out to your parents, they'd kick you out or try to put you in a mental hospital. Maybe you'd want some reproductive surgeries that could help repair, but of course not totally fix this horrible predicament. They might be horrible and painful, but it would certainly be better than the pain that you're currently experiencing. And in the end, the horror of living in that new situation may be so overwhelming that you might tragically want to take your own life. Now, in this example, you as a cis person have now been given a window into a fraction of the overwhelming, horrifying reality that is life of a trans person. So how do we fix it? Well, in real life and in media, we have examples of this. In the famously pro-trans movie by the pro-trans activist J.K. Rowling, Harry Potter, when the characters drink the Polyjuice potion, Hermione turns into a boy physically. But it still makes sense for the main characters and the audience to call her by her proper name, Hermione, and use pronouns that reflect who she is on the inside, even if every other part of her physical body is still to a T a man. We refer to trans women as women and use pronouns that reflect their gender identity. And as a final note, this is not to say that trans women are exactly the same in every respect to biological women. There can be biological parents and adopted parents. It still makes sense to call them as parents, just a different kind. Even though the dictionary may refer to a parent as the one who has a biological link to their offspring, in a social context, would we really go to an adopted parent and call them not a real parent? Well, no, because socially it does not make sense to give everyone utility, and it does not properly include the function of what it means to be a parent. At the end of the day, there are biological parents and adopted parents, but they are both still parents. There are women and there are trans women, but they are both still women. So at the end of the day, trans women and regular women, or whatever you want to call them, both deserve equal rights as to the rest of us. So yeah, and then of course we can talk about the issues of what causes a trans woman to exist and a bunch of other things, but that is my argument. And I don't know how long that was, but I don't know how I don't remember
For a
how
while there.
I was, yeah. But the argument is it's really, I think it's a pretty like weird and nuanced thing that not a lot of people like intuitively get. So there's a lot more things that I feel like I have to fully elaborate on. So
You concluded with a kind of like, therefore trans women deserve rights.
well, to clarify, I mean like in a social context. So they deserve to be called she. They deserve to be represented as real women in the same way that cis women are.
Okay, what do you mean real in that sense? There. You just said real women. They deserve to be represented as
Well, when I say like treated as women in the same way that other women are, right? So like, you know, with the same labeling, the same attitudes, the same treatments, not exactly the same, of course, but you know, because again, like there are biologically men.
Okay, so
Mhm.
I'm wondering what other rights you're referring to for them.
Well, okay. So I guess maybe rights was about, because again, like I think that there's a bit more nuance when it comes to the whole surgery aspect, and again, kids, and we can get into that. But when I just mean like rights, I just mean that they deserve the ability to exist in a world where they refer to the gender identity that they belong to, as opposed to their biological sex. So I think that trans women, you know, should be referred to as she, should be referred to as women.
I'll first go after. I'll say like you brought up the Romance languages,
Hmm.
having like gendered language referring to things, with a sort of feminine and masculine nature. Do you think that they are saying that, say like a ship? I'm pretty sure a ship has like the hearing sound. Someone commented sounds. Is it
Hmm.
you having issues hearing or something on my end?
Uh, no, I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me just fine?
Yeah.
Okay.
See my stream, someone commented, so like if there's a sound issue or like is it too loud, I don't know,
No,
make a
you're
more
good.
descriptive comment.
Yeah, no. You sound perfectly fine to me.
Okay.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong. Yeah,
Okay.
and we can let the audience see.
Either way,
Yeah.
um the when I'm pretty sure a vessel is referred to femininely. Okay, I'll
Yeah.
turn mine up. He's saying I'm quieter. Hope
At
that's
least
good.
in yeah, at least in English.
Okay. What the but like English isn't I'm pretty sure English isn't one of the Romance languages, but like literally within like Spanish there's like el and la uh
Hmm.
as like the pronouns of uh nouns, and vessel I'm pretty sure is one of them, like ship as you were
Hmm.
saying, and hopefully that fixed it too, the audio. uh do you think they're literally calling a ship a woman, or like do you think at any level, metaphorically, literally, or anything else like that, they're calling a ship a woman?
Sure, I think that they're referring to. I think that they're referring to the fact that the. So, like for instance, I'm pretty sure in Span. I can't remember. Like, I think that there are things that we would typically associate with femininity or womanhood that are that are used that are like denoted using sort of gendered language.
Mhm.
Um, so I would say that I think the reason for that is because they refer to those objects because they typically are associated with what we would typically refer to as gender, right? So gendered traits of women. So like for instance, if they were to use the gendered language on like I don't know like makeup as I don't know if that's real in Spanish, but like using gendered terms for makeup, they're not referring to the fact that they're not really referring to any kind of biological reality. They're referring to a social reality, right? That typically women tend to use makeup. So in our language, we're going to refer to that object itself as, as being more feminine, right? In our language.
Right. And
Yeah.
for those reasons and more, I would suggest that femininity is the gender, not woman.
Okay.
Because, like,
So,
in the example of the Romance languages, I don't know how common of a practice it is, but I do remember seeing, like, uh, when you would see a translation of a term, or like, there's like they, eos, or
mhm.
ellas, it would be
Yeah.
masculine or feminine, and like the
Yeah.
parentheses by it. And I think the same thing happens generally where the femininity or masculinity is the social role, is the, I wouldn't necessarily say construct, because I think that's rather loaded language, but those are the, what I said of like the behaviors and everything else like that, that people inhabit, the performances, appearances, expressions, feelings,
Hmm.
actions out. And I'm wondering what your thought on that is.
Well, I think I would disagree because I think that you can be feminine, right? But without
Mhm.
necessarily being a woman, as an example, right? So you can be a guy that
Precisely.
acts, right? Yeah. So you can be a guy that acts in certain feminine ways. Like, for instance, I don't know, you want to do yoga or some shit. I don't know.
Yeah. Or you want
But
to
you're
like
still, right.
change your name to like be like a more feminine version of your name. So say your name is
Yeah,
Alex,
Garina or
you turn
something.
it to
Yeah.
like Alexis or something else like
Yeah. Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah. Hmm.
you wish to present yourself in dresses or in makeup, or like shave your body hair, or have facial feminization surgery. I would say
Hmm.
all of those things are something that a male can do to appear more feminine, or and then
Yeah.
there's gets into behaviors and everything else like that.
Do you think there gets to a point though where the totality of all those things, so like for instance, instead of it's like just as a guy you like for instance want to play with dolls, that's a little feminine. Do you think there's a difference between that and someone who aligns with like all or 90% of sort of the gendered characteristics that we specifically do associate with womanhood? Like, do you think that there's a difference there?
I mean, in ratio, you could say
Yeah.
like a person's only performing a little bit of masculinity compared to their femininity, or a little bit of femininity compared to masculinity that they
So
perform.
okay, so you'd say it's a difference in degree, not a difference in kind.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think I would agree with you in some sense, but I think that when it comes to the social utility of using language, I think that it gets to a point where there is a difference in degree, but I think that the difference in degree is extreme enough in a social context, right? Where different terminology is necessary in a social context to use for these different people, right? So I think that we should treat a guy who wants to play with dolls very differently than a guy who identifies with literally every aspect of what it's like to be a woman other than biologically.
Let's say biologically, there's a lot of experiences that are unique to women that a man doesn't experience, not just childbirth, not just child rearing as a mother, not just
Yeah.
breastfeeding, not just having your first period, not just going through female puberty, um, but even just day to day living in a 28-day cycle where you have all of your like hormonal phases around like ovulation, menstruation, like the luteal phase. I forget the last one. Um, but that changes the way that women think. And I think one of the issues is that a lot of women don't have that feminine experience because they're on birth control, and that
Hmm.
changes the way that their hormones behave to where it's like a
Hmm.
daily cycle more similar to men's. Um, but I would say uniquely there's so many feminine qualities that are unique to women, particularly because femininity is the ideal um, like social role of specifically women and not of
Hmm.
men.
Yeah. I mean, again, like I agree that there are differences, right? There are, and
Mhm.
there are extreme differences. Trans women will never be able to experience in kind of a psychological state the physical experience of being in a woman's body, right? And
Mhm.
having all the complications and hormones and cycles and things like that that go along with that. So I agree. And sort of the same. And again, like going back to the adoptive parent analogy, adoptive parents will never be parents in the way that real, or I don't, again, I don't want to say real, I'm conceding the argument, Freudian slip. um but in the same way that biological parents are, right? Biological parents, they fuck, they do the birds and the bees,
Why so
they
vulgar, man? Why?
produce a
Come
child. I'm this is a vulgar channel. I mean, I've had a way, well, actually, I don't, is there anyone who have had on that's more vulgar than me?
I mean,
Probably
someone
Ahmed, right?
probably dropped the N word at some point during one of your streams.
Probably, unfortunately, but I'll have to go scrub through that to make sure there's nothing. Um, but anyway, like you kind of get my point though, is that like, yeah, obviously biological or non-biological parents will not be able to experience what it's like to be an actual biological parent,
Mhm.
right? And there are a lot of important experiences that are very very unique to biological parents that are important. Um, but I don't think that that makes them no longer parents. Again, in a biological sense, they're not. And again, in a biological sense, trans women are not women
I would
in
s-
that sense. But again, I think in a social context, and what gives us the most utility is to treat them as women.
I would say that the adopted parents are parents to some extent because they engage in parenting. There is a behavior of parenting. There is
Hmm.
not a behavior of womaning.
I would 100% disagree. Well, I would agree with the first part, but the second part, that there's not a behavior. So you don't think that there are behaviors that are more closely aligned to someone's biological sex, or behaviors that we treat as womanly that aren't in relation to, that aren't synonyms for one's biology? So like, I could give examples, but increased aggression, all these other things in men versus women. I mean, again,
Well,
I agree that they're closely related, but they're not the same.
well, I would say that there are behaviors, actions, performances, appearances, expressions, and feelings
Hmm.
that are the ideal of women, and that would be femininity, which is why I think
Well,
femininity is the gender that you were referring to rather than woman. That woman is itself a term of maturation of um, human females.
so I guess I'll ask you. So um, why do we refer to individuals that don't have any biological link to womanhood as women then in a social Like, do you think that it's wrong to call a robot a woman, like on a TV show as an example, or other things? Do you think
Yeah,
do you think it's an error there?
I think that's a bit of a category error there. You're playing. It's like it's a category error in the language game that I'm playing of English, and
Hmm.
like my specific language game of English, um, and in other systems, I think that it uses a less useful, ideologically motivated language game, um,
Hmm.
or just how could you say, uh, not completely thought through language game. I don't think a robot can be a woman. A robot can only behave femininely or present femininely.
Hmm. Yeah, that's true, but why do we like do you think that everyone's in error then by calling them women? You think that they should just be referred to as like when we refer to the robot, we should just call them they, right? Or we should just say it, or we should say, oh yeah, you're a feminine robot, but your pronouns are it, and your name is also their name too. Should we give them a would the feminine name or the masculine name not matter then?
I mean, like
I just
it
think that
would.
there are a lot of holes here.
I mean, I think the pronouns don't necessarily have to reflect the sex. You could even. It's again, language is about the communication of information, and the meaning of language is how we use it. So even if I were to look at a trans woman and we're talking to my grandpa who didn't know nothing about all this trans stuff going on, and I
Hmm.
said she is a he, I would be breaking both language games if both language games were totalitarian about the pronouns matching the sex,
Hmm.
but
So you're
it's
call
not.
so you're calling them, so you would you in saying that, you would be saying that person is a she in the way that they present and act and behave and all these other things in a feminine way, right? That's why we
Mhm.
call them she. But biologically they're a he. So you're essentially saying to your grandpa, she is a he, right?
Um, yeah, that would.
Okay.
It's about like the communication of information of she to identify like the referent of the uh speech that I'm uh about to speak of, like the actual object or subject in reality. Um,
Hmm.
and then is a he is to denote the qualities of that subject.
Yeah, actually, I think Ahmed actually is making a point in my favor. He says that I can see what Aurelius means by calling them feminine and masculine are genders, but then what does it mean when a woman is more masculine or a man is more feminine? So yeah, I would present to you the case of tomboys, right? Tomboys do act more feminine, or sorry, more masculine, but they're still women. So I think that there's a dividing line here where you're sort of just saying, well, it's all femininity. And I think there's some truth in that, but I think that there gets to a certain point in this sort of spectrum of femininity where you get to a certain point where you have enough feminine characteristics that it just does not make sense to call you a man anymore, right?
Remind me, tomboy is which one? It's the
It's
female.
a girl. It's a
The
biological female that sort of acts boyish. So I don't know. She wants to like play video games and get in the dirt and shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would say there is, as I mentioned in terms of my uh, opening statement, there are people from history into the present that have varying levels of that perform varying levels of femininity and masculinity, and I think
Hmm.
that um, one, it's not like violating the rules of nature or anything for you to play with gendered roles especially if the reason for their existence is fallacious, you could say,
Mm-hmm.
or even just like a false, even if it's just like a lie, like, oh, men should just bury all their feelings inside and never tell anybody about it and then die. No,
Mm-hmm.
that's a terrible model. That you're lying by omission your entire life by doing that, and you're getting worse.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's actually like an ideal of masculinity to do that. It's about learning to um, process your emotions and everything else like that. Relating it back to this,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's a moment or a point at which a tomboy can become a man. I don't think there's a degree of masculinity that a female, to use the same language, can
Mm-hmm.
express to lead them to becoming a man.
Okay, so I guess I would ask you then. I think that if, well, I'm not maybe ask, but I think I would say that if you're going to define a trans woman, what we would call a trans woman as um, an ultra feminine, you could say maybe ultra feminine or something like that, ultra feminine biological male, right, or just male, then I think I would agree with you that that is a correct assessment. But I think that given those traits, it would still make the most sense if they're that ultra feminine to call them as women and use she her pronouns.
Why?
Because I think that once you cross that certain threshold, you get to a point where in a social context, um, when we use that term woman, when we use she her pronouns, we more closely than not are referring to these feminine characteristics that someone has. So for instance, like your typical cis woman is going to have pretty much 100% or 90% or whatever. Again, the threshold, I would agree with you that there is probably not a point, like in the same way that like with the NAP, right? Is there a point where you cross the line of someone's, like on the atom wise, that it becomes aggression? Or the flashlight example, right? When you shine a flashlight on someone's house, how powerful do those rays have to be to where it becomes a laser and it becomes aggression, right? So there is kind of that spectrum, but I think that we can both acknowledge that there is at some point a point where it is not aggression and where it is. And I would say that I think that in the obvious cases, right, there is a point where someone acts so femininely, and again, not just acts or performs, but in their own consciousness, um, feel, perceive, in all the gendered ways that cis women do behave and act regularly. I think that for those reasons, socially, because we use the term woman and she her to refer to these social realities a lot more. Again, we're not checking their genitals, we're not checking their sex, we're not checking all these other things, and calling them women. I think that given that's the case, we should call them women.
You mentioned
I
she,
just
her.
mhm.
Do you think that she, her refers to the gender of the person?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I think in other contexts it wouldn't, right? If you're again, I'm a doctor, right? But generally, yeah, I think that she her should be referred to the gender. Yeah.
Yeah. And then my
Yeah.
proposition is that feminine, femininity is the gender. So if someone is presenting femininely, it would make sense to, under certain circumstances, in certain language games, um, refer to them with she, her.
Okay, so you're on board with me on the pronouns, right? By calling trans women she, but just you wouldn't want to call them women. I feel like
Under
that's kind of
certain language
weird,
games,
right?
yeah. Yeah, under
I don't know.
certain.
I
That's
just
what I'm saying. Like femininity is the gender. So it's being called she, her does not denote being a woman. It denotes being feminine. In my example of the old timey doesn't get it grandpa of
mhm,
calling the trans woman she is a he, I'm
mhm.
referring to she because the subject of my speech is feminine, and then is a he in playing the language game of identifying the um, sex of this person.
Do you think that it's possible for someone to psychologically feel like a woman, like even a cis person?
What do you mean by
'Cause,
like a woman?
well, I wanted to bring that up because I wanted to bring it back to sort of the Eldoria example of
Do
sort
you,
of the consciousness switching.
Do you mean like the median woman, the average woman, every woman?
I just mean that, like, do you think it's possible for someone like a girl or biological cis woman or whatever to feel like a woman in more ways than just, oh, I have a vagina?
Well, I'm asking like the sense that you
Well,
in which you mean like a
well,
woman, because are we talking about like the platonic idea of woman as such without relation to anything else, or are we talking about like anthropology, sociology, what does the average woman feel like?
in their own psychological head, they like, okay, so here, let me maybe give you an example to sort of clear this up. If you were to go up to someone like a biological woman and ask them, are you a woman, and then they say, yes, I do feel like a woman, and you were to ask why, I'm not even saying, I'm not saying like, oh, I'm saying a definition, but I'm more asking, in their own perspective, what reasons do you think that they would give for why they feel like a woman?
I think they would
Do you
cite
think that it would be only
feminine
biological?
behaviors, thoughts, and everything else like that.
Okay. So right. So if that's the case, if they feel that way, do you think that's an improper definition then? Because if that was the case, then you would say no. All those reasons that you've listed socially as to why you feel like a woman, that's not why you're a woman. You're not a woman. You're just feminine. You're only a woman based on your biology.
I would say why you're saying like why they feel like a woman. I think they're just
Hmm.
making the same category error or playing a different language game.
So you think that they're in error too when
Yeah,
like a cis woman says that I feel like a woman? Oh, okay.
yeah.
So again, like I think,
I don't think you know
but I
this.
I
I'm
think
a
that just doesn't.
schizophrenic. I have very particular beliefs that are very
Well,
esoteric, and everyone except for me is wrong.
well, no. I know, no. But I just think that language game doesn't really make any sense because I think that when it comes to our own identities, right? I think that our own identifications as a male, as men, are important. When we use the term men and women, when we subjectively look inside ourselves and ask ourselves whether or not we're a man and a woman, I
What do you
in
mean
that language game,
subjectively?
I don't think that we. What do you mean?
Like, what do you mean
What
subjectively? Ask yourself if you're a man or a woman. Like, if
you
we were
look
like,
you look at how
uh,
you feel, right? How you act, right? How you internalize those actions.
I think that's just again talking about gender, and that's
It's like
getting away from like what I am claiming what a man and a woman is to be, because a man is a sign, a mark of
oh shit.
maturation, of a boy into a man, of a girl into a woman, um, as an adult human female rather than a anything else, and then as a adult human male for man, um, and these sort of feelings that we have are our inclinations towards the ideal, the inclination of women towards femininity and the inclination of men towards masculinity. And I think that's
Could
completely explanatory of all of these gendered behaviors and all of this gender ideology.
could you like lay that out a bit more? Because I'm a little lost here with what you're saying.
So the feminine ideal, uh, at least culturally in the Western tradition, is the summation of traditions regarding what is the good life for a woman. Now, a lot of these are
Mhm.
in error. A lot of these are influenced, especially by modern culture, leading to errors. Like being a boss babe is not feminine; it's masculine, actually.
Mhm.
Um, I don't even know what having an abortion would be. Androgynous, queer.
Mhm.
um, but and then for men, wearing a skirt is we'll go with wearing lipstick is feminine because you brought up the Scotland example. Wearing lipstick is
Mhm.
feminine, and all of these things are traditionally in the West not ideal for men and women, respectively.
Mhm.
those behaviors do not lead to the good life for each, which is why
Mhm.
when men are describing uh, what it is like to be a man, the likeness to be a man is masculinity. Because there is no manening, there is no womaning, there is
Mhm.
just feminine and masculine behavior. Um,
Mhm.
we have these perfect terms to describe um, all of these ideal actions, performances, appearances, expressions, and feelings of men and women in the terms masculinity and femininity. And I don't think the terms man and woman accurately denote that or exclusively denote that.
But in our common language though we use the terms we use the terms woman to represent someone who does behave ultra masculinely or femininely, right? Not in every
Yeah,
case, of course,
masculine
because
woman.
again, like there are outliers, of course.
What do you mean? Like there's like masculine woman? Because
Like, okay, well, yeah, well, okay, well, if that's the case, then how are you? If they're separate things, right? If there's masculinity, you can be a woman without being masculine, right? If they're separate, then how are you defining womanhood with by only referring to someone's biology? That just doesn't make any sense.
what do you
Like in
mean?
our
Like
common
you
language,
can
we
be a
don't do
woman
that. We don't look
without
at someone's
being
genitals. We
masculine?
don't look at
Yes.
yeah.
Did you mean to like did you error in speaking that or how did you mean?
Wait, what the fuck? Wait, what the fuck did I say? Did I say it wrong?
You can
Shit.
be a woman without being masculine.
My bad. Just you guys know what I meant, but
Oh, you could be a woman
um
without being feminine? Are you
uh
asking? Or can
well
you be?
yeah, I think you can be a woman um who acts more manly, sure. Yeah. Like a
I mean,
tomboy as an example.
like every woman is going to experience some level of femininity in their in the behavior that would come to them naturally,
Mhm.
in their conscience, um, in their appearance, because plastic surgery isn't perfect.
Mhm. Yeah, I just think that once you get to a certain threshold, of behavior, I just don't think it makes sense to only use biology to refer to women. Because again, like in our ordinary language, we don't u- we don't use words in the way that you're trying to use them.
Why do you
Like you
think
said,
not?
like you said, like when you ask a woman, like a cis woman, what makes them a woman, and they say, "Oh yeah, my biology, but also, I feel
Well,
internally like a woman because in my consciousness, I feel like I have the consciousness of a woman. My brain doesn't think the same way as a man's brain. I behave differently. I'm attracted to different things. I value different things. All of these compounding factors make me a woman in that person's own mind when you ask them. And for you to say, well, oh, well, no, no, no. When you reference all these social characteristics that make you a woman, no, 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 you're just in error because none of those have anything to do with womanhood. They only have to do with femininity. It's
I don't
only your
think a
biology that
woman
counts.
is going to be mentioning consciousness if you're going to do an on the street interview.
Well, sure. They might not do it in like the way that in like a complex way, but they might say something like, um, I get more, I don't know exactly what they would say maybe, but they
Also, I
might
think you
say
would get
that
a variety of answers.
yeah, sure, I think you would, yeah.
And I think many of those answers would be, "Oh, I'm an adult human female."
Yeah, I think some of them would just reference biology, and I
Yeah.
think I think that they would be wrong in doing that.
Like the whole
But
like Matt
because I think
Walsh
that if you I
documentary,
think because I think
where
that if you were to press them and say, "Oh, well, okay, well, if they removed your if they chopped off if they I don't know, if you were a man, for instance, they chopped off your dick, you're not suddenly a woman anymore."
you would know by chromosomes.
Yeah, but again, in our language, there was a time before the 1900s when we didn't even know that chromosomes existed, but we still use men and women. What were we using those terms to denote then?
Hey, microphone is starting to cut out.
Oh
So
shit, did I
I
cut
think I
out or
could.
was it?
No, no, no. Mine is. It's like having
Mhm.
some technical errors. So let me hope that this one will start working better.
But yeah,
Can you
while
still
you're
hear
doing
me?
that, yeah, I can hear you better actually now.
Okay, that's good.
But Ahmed did mention he wants to he wants us both to answer the male Megan Fox versus female Hulk Hogan question, and I told him that we'll do that at the end. Is that cool with you? Uh, okay, you might be cutting out then again, because I can't hear you.
Second, I'm gonna replug this in somewhere else.
Okay, no worries.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry for the technical difficulties, folks.
Mm-hmm. Um, but yeah, just kind of back to everything good.
Yeah, I think so.
Um,
My thing kept dying on.
okay. Um, but yeah, like as an example, like you mentioned, oh well, we just looked to the chromosomes, and it's like, well, yeah, but there was a certain point where we didn't know what chromosomes were before the 1900s, but there were still men and women. We both used that term.
Because you can identify their characteristics. They're the
What types of?
primary and secondary sexual characteristics about a person.
Okay,
But
so if
I think that's. I'll let you go on.
so if a guy was femininely or like weak physically, and some of his dick was chopped off, or a woman couldn't get birth or
Eunuch.
anything like that, huh?
Is a eunuch
Would
a
they?
woman? No.
Wait, a eunuch? What is that?
A eunuch is someone who's sterile, a sterile man.
Okay. Oh, a sterile man. Yeah. Obviously not.
And I think in those cases, it's not like they are unable to fulfill the entire ideal of masculinity, and they would be without some of the hormone production for it. In terms of like a woman who's got her ovaries removed or a man who's got his testes removed, but the ideals of men and women would still exist independent of them, at least intersubjectively.
Do you think in the scenario that I described in the hypothetical society that these two SWAT people, Darren and Lucy, do you think that in the society that they're now living in, do you think that if we knew about the cloning incident, that we should still call them by their by what they are biologically and physically only when it comes to man and woman?
I'm not
So
convinced
so
that
like so like so
consciousness
like
switching
Darren,
machine doesn't contain a contradiction in it.
what would be the contradiction?
Well, what of their consciousness is being switched?
Just like their memories and stuff, just like their brain,
So,
think about like Freaky Friday, right, that you see in movies. Like you can hypothesize that that could be a thing that could exist, right, at some point.
well, are they like switching the like material of the neurons encoded that encode their memories
I don't
into it?
honestly, I don't know how the machine again in this hypothetical would work. I don't because thing is because I think that there's this kind of issue where it's like, okay, is it the brain, is it the mind, or are they separate and whatever? But you could theoretically imagine a scenario where a person has the same memories and all the same behaviors and personality traits, but just placed into the physical body or vessel of another person, right?
Let me ask,
I don't
because
really know how
this
it
gets
would work
into
scientifically, but
this
you
gets
could
into
you could
like
hypothesize that example pretty reasonably, right?
the identity. Have you heard the idea that the Star Trek teleporter is a suicide box?
No. Like, do you mean like because it deconstructs every atom of their body,
Mhm.
technically killing them, but then reconstructs it into a different plate at a different place?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you heard of like the ship of Theseus? Do you have an answer for which one is the ship of Theseus?
I don't think anyone has an answer for the ship of Theseus.
I mean, like,
Do you?
not necessarily like a definitive one, but you're under a certain metaphysics that implies a certain conclusion. For anyone who doesn't know, the ship of Theseus is a mythological ship where, over time, every material component of it is taken apart and replaced, such that the entire ship has had everything replaced in the time that it has been out at sea. So it is an entirely new ship. Is it still the ship of Theseus? Most people will say, like, well, yes. And then take all of those parts that have been removed and then rebuild an exact replica of the original ship. Is that the ship of Theseus? And then this gets compared to humans, where because of our cell's metabolism in taking in certain substance, like certain matter, and replacing the matter within us, even if many cells stay alive, their matter that constitutes them is replaced over time, except for certain matter that stays, like sometimes the genetic sequence. But diving into the weeds there, I would suggest that the ship of Theseus is the one that has had all of the material replaced. That being is a pattern of transformation, not a identification with the substances of that transformation at a certain period of time. So the teleportation machine is a suicide box, and if only if the consciousnesses of each person, Darren and who was the other one?
Lucy.
Darren and Lucy were snuffed out in this machine and then reanimated, supposedly with the other's consciousness, and no other facts changed. No like material or substantive changes of the brain or anything else itself. If that were to happen, they were both killed and now their bodies are reanimated with some different minds.
Okay. So, well, yeah, they would
And-
technically be different in some sense, yeah.
Yeah.
But in another, we could maybe say that they're the same
And in what sense?
because they have like the same memories, personality traits, etc. Right?
Well, how would we know that they would have those different memories? Because what I would suggest is if a new consciousness were to arise from the body of Lucy, it would maintain all of the same memories as Lucy. It would make the same decisions as Lucy, would behave the same as Lucy. So I don't think that this consciousness switching machine can arise. It's only a consciousness sort of like killing and reanimating machine.
Okay, so sure. So I mean, we can use whatever semantic thing that you want to call it that. Sure. What happens in that scenario, right? What do we do? Do we refer to Darren as only their biology?
I'm saying that, like, if supposedly I think that's just disconnecting consciousness from that's disconnecting the mind from the body in a way that is violatory of ontological principles. So
okay.
what I mean by
I'm
that,
a little okay.
It assumes that you can. It assumes that you can put Darren's consciousness into Lucy's body, that Darren's consciousness is not a pattern of becoming of Darren, that instead it is a distinct thing, like a soul that you can extract, a non-material soul that you can extract from Darren and put into Lucy. And I reject the concept of the soul.
Okay, so you're rejecting the hypothetical. So I mean, well, I just don't. Well, I mean, sure, but like, I just don't think. I mean, can you not? Because you can call it whatever semantic thing that you want to. You could hypothesize someone with the exact same memories, personality traits that was put into another. Well, I mean, again, not literally, maybe, but that is existent in another body, right? So again, just think about Freaky Friday. Do you think that there could be a Freaky Friday scenario? Well, it's okay, but like
So if we're
like
not
the
talking
alien
about
Martian
reality,
okay. So the alien Martian scenario, you can't use that because, well, but aliens aren't there. It's kind of like the breakfast
well, yeah,
question. But
maybe
I
not
didn't have
Martians, but maybe like Centaurians or something like that to us.
hmm
Like maybe some like further distant aliens, sure, that have the power to blow up our planet or do anything else. For anyone not wondering, it's just like the "Would you steal a penny to stop the Martians from blowing up the world?" Is what we're referencing.
I mean, I would agree that if there was something that was uh if you constructed a hypothetical like what would the world look like if a square was a circle, then sure, I think that would be an invalid hypothetical. But I don't think that like because again, this is kind of getting into the philosophy of it. But I don't think that saying a hypothetical that doesn't actually exist in reality, like you know Martians coming down, for instance, I think it still gets the same point across. You can still gain more knowledge from hypotheticals,
Well, that's why I was
but
so roundabout about rejecting this hypothetical because I think it is invalid ontologically. Like, these higher order structures of consciousness are um, relational. They
hmm
relate to the pattern of becoming of our bodies. They
hmm
are not distinct substances from our bodies. So if you
hmm
disrupt that pattern of becoming, then you are not the same pattern of becoming. That
yeah, I
not that
agree.
like A at t equals whatever time before he threw the switch is not the same as A prime after he threw the switch.
Okay, yeah, like in a technical sense, I agree, but in sort of a non-literal sense, they've technically switched bodies, right? Can
Yeah.
you at least agree on that,
So say
or
like
switch minds, or whatever you want to call a Freaky Friday scenario?
yeah, but say the pattern of becoming was the first person experience of Darren becomes
hmm
Lucy. Say that because that's something I don't know if I can
What do you what do you mean?
so like the phenomenal experience of whatever this thing is, it is looking through the eyes, it is feeling from the perspective of Darren. That in the next moment after he throws the switch
hmm
is um, looking through the eyes, feeling through the skin from the perspective of Lucy.
Okay, yeah.
I think that immediately upon doing that, it would assume basically the identity of Lucy. It would have the memories of Lucy. It would have the non-propositional knowledge of Lucy,
hmm
and the propositional knowledge, um, access to the memories, everything else like that. All of the same neural pathways.
Okay, so I think I might be able to get at what you're saying. If you're saying like, in a literal sense, are Darren and Darren Lucy anymore? In a technical sense, no, because they're kind of like a hodgepodge, right? Again, it is kind of
Mhm,
like the ship of Theseus example where it's like half and half, right?
mhm.
But what I would ask you is that in a social context, given this were to happen, right? What should we do socially? What would make sense socially? What would make sense given our language conventions?
Mhm. I think that they wouldn't feel the horrors of the life of a trans person, which leads them to suicide without transition. I think that they would have the first person experience of, uh, for Darren and Lucy, a woman and man respectively, now that they're Lucy and Darren. I don't think that it is comparable to gender dysphoria because I think in every way they would be a woman and a man now that they are a woman and a man.
Yeah, again, I agree physically, but mentally, no.
No, I'm
That's
saying
not the
also
case.
mentally. Like
So,
they
so
were phenomenally um they were phenomenally like experiencing through the perspective of the other, but they don't even have access to those memories anymore.
okay, would you if the situation happened to you, right? Would you be cool with that? Like if you were placed into the body of a woman, like just as an example.
I mean, no, because I like my life. I'm not suicidal. Israel.
Well, no. I mean, but what? Well, yeah, but like why? Like why would it be? Why would you feel uncomfortable in a woman's body? If by that transfer
No,
you
I
just
just want my
you
body.
just become became a woman anyway.
I just want my body and I want to live my life. I would accept no alternative. I love my
Okay,
man.
sure, but why?
Because I
Like
love my
what? Like
life
what?
particularly. I wouldn't want to be
Okay,
an English
yeah. Trans people like their life too, right?
I wouldn't want to be Donald Trump. I
Yeah,
wouldn't want to be any other man in the world, just like I
yeah.
wouldn't want to
Trans
be any
women,
other woman.
yeah, exactly. Trans women who behave and feel as women in their own
What do you mean
consciousness and who
behave and
act
feel
as.
as women?
Okay, I think we already like addressed this though. Like, do you agree
That it's
that
all
femininity? Yeah. Okay, so again, I think this just gets back to semantics. Again, if you're gonna call a trans woman just an ultra feminine man, then
Okay,
sure,
do we
in
want
a
to get to
sense,
the
I think I
language
would
games then?
agree. But I just don't think it would make sense to not call them a woman at that point.
Do we want to get to the language games then? Which language game communicates more information?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we could do that.
Okay,
I
so
did want to just before we do that.
sure.
I did
Oh yeah,
want
the
to. Ahmed
culture
gave a thing. He said, "Give Aurelius a new prompt. A machine that could
prompt.
carry over the changes in your brain relevant to your mind can be moved over to a new brain of the opposite sex without the disassembly of the structure." I mean,
I don't think it's about the charges specifically. I think it's about like the pattern of becoming, which is so much more than just the electrical impulses at like one moment or anything else like that.
mhm,
It's
yeah.
encoded into the
I
structure
think
of your brain in terms of like the minute
I think we
machine
can.
around the neuron and so on and so forth.
I think we can probably get into the language games now if you want.
Sure.
Did you want to say your piece about that?
I propose that there is no more fitting terms to exclusively denote the ideal actions, performances, appearances, expressions, and feelings of men and women than masculinity and femininity. So the ideal actions, performances, appearance, expressions, feelings of men and women.
So what would it take in your view to call someone a woman then?
They're an
Like what
adult
would be
human female.
okay, right, female. What is that?
A human talking in the human context. We can try to get more. If you'd like to go into the weeds of other species, we can. But
Hmm.
absence of Y chromosome
Okay.
in a male is a human with the presence of a Y chromosome.
So that's the definition that has the most use to you then, you think?
Yeah, because
Okay.
I think the marker of maturation of a human of a given sex into adulthood is extremely important. There are all sorts of because this is the marker of the end of puberty, which is an extremely tumultuous time of change, and the distinction between a boy and a man is incredibly important, just as it is between a girl and a woman.
Hmm. Do you think that when people call each other men and women like on the street, like as like if they're strangers, do you think that they before doing so, they ask that person what their chromosomes are and then use the proper pronouns and then call them a woman?
What do you mean proper pronouns?
The pronouns related to what you would use for pronouns, right? When you're looking at, you would say, well, actually, ignore the pronoun. Just go with women, because I think we already agree that pronouns can be used differently in different contexts. So,
Yeah, and I would say
mhm,
pronouns more so associate with the gender of the person, which is their femininity or masculinity.
mhm.
Um, but does a person check the chromosomes of somebody before they assume that they are a man? No, I think they are making an assumption based off different characteristics.
What types of characteristics?
Say presence of an Adam's apple.
Okay, sure. Do you think those characteristics are only physical, or not only physical, but only biological?
Like, are you asking the are the only characteristics that are indicative of someone being a man biologically derived?
Hmm.
I'd say probably the best ones are, but there are a bit more flaky ones that are.
Hmm. Sure. So given that there are other ways of identifying someone as a woman, right, that are not inherently tied to biological sex, right? Like let's say like a trans person that passes, right? You might glance over at them and like assume or look over at them and be like, oh, that's looks like a woman or whatever. and in their behaviors also, in the way that you talk with them, they act like women, etc. In this, well, again, I'm sort of assuming my premise here. It's my bad.
Mhm.
They act feminine
Femininely.
in more ways than just someone who's sort of a tomboy would act, right?
Mhm.
Okay.
They act
Yeah.
hyper feminine such that they I'm trying to think of like a way to phrase pass, but I'll just say pass.
Hmm.
Because I don't necessarily want to link it to deception,
Hmm.
because I think that's not true of the intentions of trans women from their perspective, and I wouldn't say objectively either.
Hmm.
But so we have this trans woman that passes. Could you remind me of what you were asking again?
Fuck. I fucking lost the original. God damn it. Shit. Okay, actually, I have another question to ask you. Okay,
Okay.
here's another question. So, and again, this is more to do with what you might generally assume, but if you were to take a guess, when a trans woman says that they identify as a woman or that they feel like a woman internally, what do you think that they're probably what things do you think that they would probably be referencing?
I think what is true of them is that they wish to fulfill the ideal of femininity, and
Hmm.
what is false that they are trying to claim is that that makes them a woman.
Well, I don't think they would be trying to. I think they would just be acting in that way. Like that's just their personality trait. That's just who
Well,
they
when they're
are as a
saying,
person.
I am a woman, they're
Hmm.
trying to claim that they are a woman. What they actually, what is true of what they are expressing is that they wish to fulfill the ideal of femininity.
I don't know. I mean, I think in some sense, yeah, but I think there would be other senses that they would just feel internally like this is kind of who I am, right? This is kind of my personality trait.
Would that
These
make them
are these
correct
are my behaviors. These are my behaviors.
because they feel that it is so? Does that make it true?
Yeah, of course. Well, I mean, well, not
Of
no 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 no.
course.
No 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 no. Hang on.
The objectivists are going to be
Let
very
me let
angry
me
at
let me
you.
let me back that up. Let me back that up. Because I think there is a problem that a lot of trans people say, well, a woman is just it's the sort of circular. A woman is whatever. Whenever I say that I'm a woman, right? A woman is someone who feels like a woman, right? It's just circular, right? Yeah.
So, how was that? Like, what do you mean? Like, to them, they think a woman is whoever says they're a woman is whoever says they're a whoever says they're a.
I think some of them might use that definition, but I think that what probably they would be more accurate in referring to are these socially feminine behaviors and thought processes and desires, wants, needs, etc. That we typically associate with uh, biological women.
And I would call that femininity.
Okay.
So that I think that they're
I
saying that
think
they
yeah.
want to behave femininely.
Mhm.
And I think that's a more
I
useful
think
language game.
I think we might be just running in circles here because I think we're in agreement with the pure descriptive facts, but I think it's just the what socially makes sense to refer to people as. Because again, like if you're just gonna say someone who is trans is just an ultra feminine biological man,
Mhm.
then I think I think I would agree with you on that. I would just personally I think I would just
Roll
use the term
credits, I
woman to
win.
describe them. I would just use the term woman to describe them, right?
Yeah, I would say
Yeah.
I'll ask you this in
I think
terms of
I think it
language
just makes the most sense. I think in all the relevant characteristics that matter when it comes to using that term, both historically and just how we use it to describe cis women, I think that because again we might be looking for indicators of chromosomes, but I would say that those indicators are what represents gender. So for instance,
Can a
like
trans 16-year-old
okay,
male be a woman?
a trans 16-year-old male, like what do you mean?
Can he be a woman?
or can the trans 16-year-old male be a woman?
You mean a biological 16-year-old man?
Well, 16-year-old man is kind of meh, but like
Well, yeah,
male.
so
Can a
so you're
trans
getting into the kid.
Yeah.
Well, maybe if you're doing like the whole, well, it's not, well, they're not adults, then maybe
Yeah.
girl might be the proper
Yeah.
girl or woman. Yeah, so I mean, I guess again, in the trans woman or real woman, I think we're mostly talking about adults. We're not really referring to children, but I do think that trans children could exist.
What's the relationship between woman and girl?
I think that once you have a sort of rate of biological maturity, you would
Okay,
become a
but like
woman, right?
say
Yeah.
this trans 16-year-old
Mm-hmm.
who is a male and then wants
Mhm.
to identify as a trans woman,
Mhm.
say they behave in all the ways that women do under your idea, under your
Mm-hmm.
definition, would that make them a woman?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think it would just make more sense to call them a girl because they're
Why?
younger, you know.
Why does
Because they're younger.
Why does age?
Well,
factor into
because
this? They're
typically,
behaving in all the ways
because
that make them
typically
women.
because typically we use age as like a not really like a biological marker, but like a sort of proxy for someone's hormonal development, right?
Well,
Because
if
there
they're
are certain there are
behaving in all
different.
of these
So
ways.
when does a cis girl become a woman,
There's
right?
a
That's
cis
kind of a or
when she's an
yeah,
adult.
yeah. Well, when does she reach adulthood?
I think it's 20, but I'm out there.
Right. So we still use age as a proxy in our language, right? So I don't know why we can't do the same for trans
Because you were
people.
just saying that a woman is a gender, which is about social constructs and behavior. So why can't a
Well,
16-year-old
not
fulfill all of the
well, not
aspects
that a
of this social
woman,
construct?
not that a woman is a gender, but when we use terms like women, I think that we typically refer to gender and we in our language, right?
Yeah, why can't they be that in that way?
Why can't they be what?
Why can't the trans 16-year-old be a woman in the way that we refer to it as gender? They are
Because
performing all of these
well,
behaviors of this gender.
Well, because I think that when we're talking about girls versus women, I think we generally are referring to the age of people, right? So you could maybe say like a young woman, right? Because you could still say that like, oh, I gave birth to a female or I gave birth to a, because again, like girl and women seem to refer to the same thing, but just at like different stages of development.
So we have
So
a
I think
term.
like if I were to say you are a trans girl, right? I
Mhm.
think I would be just saying the exact same thing as saying that you're a trans woman, but just that you're a younger trans woman.
So we have a term that not only marks the maturation of a girl into adulthood,
Hmm.
it also marks all of these different social constructions of actions, performances, ideals, expressions, feelings, and then it also is a term to represent biological sex. I think that is a very muddled term. I think that is a package deal term. These things don't equate to each other, that they don't mean the same thing, and that is why I think that language game has less utility.
I really don't think it's like that crazy to say, socially speaking, yes, you act in the ways of a woman, but since you are younger and since we in our language games we normally refer to to cis women or to cis girls with women, we do refer to their hormonal development, right? I think that given that that is the case, I don't think it's really that crazy to say you behave in all of the ways of a woman, so we're going to call you a woman. But given that you're younger, you're 16 or whatever, you're not quite developed even when it comes you're not you don't have that level of developmental maturation, then yeah, we could just say you're a girl.
But I'm saying
But again,
all of these
I could what was that?
you're loading up all of these meanings into women.
I don't think I'm really loading up anything. I think I'm using it. I think I'm using the term woman in ways that we typically would use to describe any other woman.
Perhaps like you would use the term in this way, but it's now because of this um, questioning about a 16-year-old. It's
Hmm.
now you've added like an extra dimension of it as a marker of maturity. Um,
Sure.
in addition to that, you've added the dimension of it of gender identity,
Mhm.
where it's about all of the social constructions. I could go through the spiel again, but performances, expressions, yada yada. Um,
Mhm.
and there is the dimension of it where it is in the doctor's office of biological sex.
Yeah, again, there are lots of dimensions to language. I don't.
I
It's
think
like
you're
it's really not
overloading
that.
that term.
I don't think. Well, the thing is, I don't think that they're. I don't think that. Yeah, I guess I would just disagree. I just don't think it's really that. It's really not that complicated.
What do you think
And
of
yeah, of
capitalism?
course, like you're. Huh?
What do you think of capitalism?
I guess it depends on how you define it, because a lot of people would use capitalism to refer to simultaneously a free market and a regulated corporatocracy.
Do you agree? Do you identify with one of the definitions of capitalism?
I think just like given the fact that everyone's sort of confused and using all these contradictory definitions, and sometimes they will use it in one way and sometimes they use it another way. I kind of just take a step back before fully defining capitalism, and I would just sort of ask someone what they mean. I don't really like in the same way, because I don't really identify as like an anti-capitalist or a
Yeah.
pro-capitalist in the same way that I used to.
But you would take issue with taking on the mantle of the label because of the contradictory nature of the definitions of
Uh,
capitalism.
sure, or just like, or in the same way that like because the language around it is so complicated and not entirely clear when people are referring to it, and a lot of the sort of ways that people use the term is kind of confusing. I think that that's kind of the main reason why I take a step back and say, well, I guess it just depends on what you would use to define
What do you mean confusing?
as capitalism. Well, because like if a Marxist were to come up to you and say, "I oppose capitalism," and you were to say, "Oh, what do you mean by that?" and they were to say, um, I don't like this totally unregulated market that we're living in now." That would be very confusing, because from our perspective, we know that the current economy is not actually unregulated. It's highly regulated, and it's a corporatist society.
Mhm.
So the definition that you're giving me is contradictory there. It's either a free market or it's a statist society that we live in currently.
And I think if you were to challenge a communists like that, they would and like start to talk about the things that you would like to repeal, they would screech and call you terrible for wanting to remove the few little regulations that we have left. But they wouldn't
Yeah, yeah,
identify that they exist. Um,
yeah.
I think that this overloading of the term capitalism leads to a like contradictory meanings
Mm,
within it, and the same is true of woman.
mm,
You wish not to identify with like the mantle of capitalist because it could have these package deal terms of
mm-hmm,
these mutually exclusive definitions with each other,
mm-hmm.
and I think that the same is true when it comes to woman as a marker of maturation, as a gender, and as a sex.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, I
to
mean, I think I would agree. I think I would agree, because, like, again, like if I were to walk up to a conservative and they were to say trans women are not women, you can't deny basic biology. I would probably say, yeah, true. I agree with you. When if you're referring to a woman only as someone who's biologically someone who has all these biological characteristics, then I would agree with you. But yeah, trans women are not women. But I
roll
think
credits.
I would agree with you if that's what you meant, but again, I don't. When I'm making the claim trans women are women, I think that that's the most useful way to refer to the using the term women in our language. I think that trans women have all the social characteristics that we would say are feminine.
All
Um, almost sure. Again, like that's there. Again,
most.
there are of course like there are cis men and women that also have characteristics that we would associate with masculinity and femininity.
What makes you
Some.
like
I think that.
a trans woman can be extremely feminine. A trans woman
Mhm.
can be more feminine than a woman, we'll say. This is true. I'll just say this is true. A trans woman can
Mhm.
be more feminine than a woman. I don't think that makes her a woman. And I say her because pronouns have to do with gender, and femininity is the true gender, and man and woman was, we'll say, adopted as genders, was appropriated as genders when it shouldn't have been. This was an error in history.
I don't think that it would be per se an error, because I'm not really familiar with how the terms even really evolved. Actually,
Mhm.
Are you at all familiar with sort of how how these kind of terms and references got started?
The terms themselves are ancient.
Hmm.
It's English. It's uh, medieval, probably.
Hmm.
But I do know how gender ideology got started.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, no. I'm aware of John Money. Yeah, of course.
Yes,
We
John
could
Money
get in
sexually
we could get
abused
into that
kids. Yeah.
because I think that John Money actually proves my point.
How?
Because when the kids were raised, as when he forced these two people who were not trans to live the lives socially as men and women, I think that fucked them up and made them want to kill themselves and obviously hurt their consciousness, but specifically because they were not trans, they had to live in a society where
What do you
they
mean by
had to
trans?
act in
Do you
all
mean
in
gender
all of the
dysphoria?
ways that they. Yeah, sure. They weren't gender dysphoric or
So
whatever you
can
want to call it.
only
I know that
people
some
with gender
some
dysphoria be
people.
trans?
Um. Yeah, I think so. I might, if you bring up a hypothetical that might contradict that, I might roll back on
Right.
that.
Yeah.
But for now, from what I can understand, yeah, I think I would probably agree with that. Yeah, there probably are some people on the left who would disagree with me because again, like there are people who are gender abolitionists, which I don't really subscribe to, and there are people that have other positions. So I think even I'm not liked by anyone. I'll just say that.
Yeah. Very iconoclastic.
Hmm.
I think that's the term. I don't but anyways, I was just getting flashbacks of like the John Money information. For anybody who doesn't know, John Money was a sexologist who came upon a family whose son had a botched circumcision. So he was born, and then through genital mutilation, his boyhood was singed off because they decided to use flame rather than the normal like cutting. Um, this family was desperate, didn't know what to do, and John Money comes along saying, "We shall raise your boy as a girl." Uh, in this therapy, the rest of his genitals were removed. He was, for years of his life, not told. That was very important that he wasn't told the truth. And he was dressed femininely. His hair was grown out femininely, and uh, in meetings with John Money without the parents present, John Money had the children, the boy and his brother, or the boy that they were dressing femininely and everything, and his brother assume positions of intercourse with each other, where the uh, boy that they were trying to make a girl was in the feminine positions. John Money abused these kids in an adult manner that was absolutely abhorrent. Um, and due to his research with the child at that time in this short-term quote unquote study, in this anecdote, um, John Money created the idea of gender, published a seminal paper in gender theory, and is still, I wouldn't say it necessarily like widely regarded because of how many people know this, but his work is still cited to this day.
I think most people in my camp pretty much are on the anti-John Money side. Although I think that we agree. I don't know what he says about gender and distinctions or whatever, but um, if he does distinguish between sex and gender, I would agree. But again, Hitler liked breathing. I like breathing. You know, it's like I don't really care. You know.
Mhm.
Um,
But
so I will say that go
this
ahead.
boy engaged in many feminine behaviors,
Mhm.
some coerced against his will,
Mhm.
and he never became a girl. Would you agree
Mhm.
to that?
Get in that he was forced to socially behave in ways that didn't match how he felt on the inside.
Later on, he detransitioned, you could say. But in the
You mean
time that
back to a
back to a man.
back,
After
yeah.
I think after he was an adult, I forget when they specifically told him. It could have been while he was
Mhm.
still a minor. Um,
Mhm.
but the child performed, appeared, acted out, expressed um, femininity. Was that child a girl?
He well no, because he wasn't trans, right? So
Do you mean because he wasn't experiencing gender
he well
dysphoria?
well he well he wanted to he in his own kind of head he wanted to, and you know, his own like way of being, he felt like you know, he felt in his performances that were all what we would typically denote for the gender as male, right?
What?
And then I can go on, but
Were you
like
saying
just
just the
like
feelings?
yeah, sure, there sure feelings, but all yeah, sure, your
Are you
own
saying the
internalized sort of
feelings
feelings.
alone are what makes you a man or woman?
No.
Okay, well, you have this child who has everything except for the feelings. Um, why are they not a girl?
Uh, like, what do you mean? Could you like be
This
more
boy
specific?
had acted out, performed, appeared, and expressed
Mm-hmm.
femininity.
Mm-hmm.
Why is he not a girl?
In the same way that uh, tomboys who perform in certain ways that are
This
uh,
boy
girls.
had his genitals removed at a young
Mm-hmm.
age and was never told the truth. For his whole
Mm-hmm.
life, he thought he was a girl.
Well, I don't
Is
know if I think that he thought that he was a girl because he was abused in a way that that he was forced into a position that he didn't feel comfortable with, right?
well, his parents were
Yeah.
in on keeping the secret from him that he was born a boy.
Mm-hmm.
Why is he not a girl?
Do you think he felt uncomfortable in that position? Do you think
I mean,
like
under
it do
the
you think that
spectrum,
there
what do you
was
feel?
do you think that he felt like there was something wrong with with being told that he was a woman in reality, but he felt another way?
I think he could intuit.
Yeah, you think he could intuit, right? So do you think that that intuition might give out an idea that he might not actually have been trans in the same way that like trans people in like the same way that
Are you saying it's the
people who call
intuition alone
themselves
that makes one
trans are?
trans?
I'm asking you the question. I'm asking you what the question that I asked you.
And sorry, could you repeat the question?
Um, forced into a
Do it.
position may be a poor choice of words. I guess forced to act and behave in gendered ways that he did not feel like represented um his own gender identity. Sure.
But do I think he experienced gender dysphoria? I think gender dysphoria, and this gets into another conversation, but I would like to come back to this.
Mm-hmm.
I think gender dysphoria is a form of body dysmorphia, where one wishes that one was either more feminine or more masculine in their characteristics due to um, a mental disorder.
Yeah, I think I would agree. Although I don't really, I think some leftists wouldn't call it a disorder. I mean,
I mean, it leads to suicidal thoughts.
yeah,
How
I was gonna
much
say
more
like
disorderly can you get?
yeah, it's very disorderly. I might get canceled or whatever for saying that, but
And
I don't
I'm
really
pro
care.
mental health. I don't
Um,
think calling it a disorder means that a person is any lesser.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's kind of my position too. You know, I think that we might be at a good stopping point actually, because I think this might be. I think what we might do is similarly how you did with the that other guy that you debated. It's
Mhm.
actually, now that we kind of have a better idea of what our positions are, it might be a good point for us to maybe at some point kind of go back to our drawing boards, flesh out some more arguments, because I think that we might be able to kind of fully understand each other more if we were to sort of think about it, drop some more kind of conclusions, and then come back with a better understanding.
Well,
What
could
do
I
you
have
think?
a few answers to the questions that I
Yeah,
have open?
yeah, yeah.
I'll say, I'll ask again, why was that boy who um, acted, performed, appeared, expressed femininity not a girl?
I think that the reason why they did these things was because of social pressure. Kind of in the same way that like trans women who might, like, so for instance, you might internally sort of want to express in this way, right? But in your own actual actions don't, because you fear the social repercussions, right? So I think that the reason why that this study validates me is because this is a scenario where someone socially felt a lot of pressure to behave in one way, when in reality he did not want to behave in that way, but did behave in that way specifically because of the social pressure pushed on him.
So you're saying,
So I think that like for instance, like I think that you can be a trans woman but still behave in all the ways of a man, but want to behave in all the ways of a woman, right? But don't, because you won't face the social percussion. So if I did say that, like, oh well, womanness is those behaviors themselves, I think I would probably retract that a little bit to more specifically say, um, to more specifically kind of lay out kind of what I've just laid out here.
are you saying it's because, let me run this by you. Would you agree with he did not organically desire to act out, perform, appear, express, and feel feminine? Therefore,
Yeah,
he was
like
not a girl.
yeah, like in some sense, on the inside he did want to do all these things, but he couldn't because of the social pressure. So he,
Oh,
in reality, he did behave in the ways that, whatever would make him this way, but in the
so
way
it's
that he
sort of like
actually,
the
yeah, it was
internal
an ident. Yeah,
feelings, intuition, desires. He was not
sure,
feminine, therefore he was not a girl.
sure.
Okay. And then, uh, do you have a more fitting term to exclusively denote the maturation of an adult male and female than men and women, respectively?
Um, could you say that again? Like I'm a little lost there.
You're good. So the maturation from a boy into a man, do you have a
Hmm.
term that exclusively means that to replace
Hmm.
man and woman? Or no?
Right. So, like, are you asking me if I have a term for that that would also include like the development from like a trans girl to a?
No, no, no. I'm saying just that. That would mean just that. That would, like, a term that would mean just the maturation of a boy into an adult. Like the completion of that maturation into an adult male. Like this person is an adult male. Do you have a term that denotes that maturation of them being an adult male?
When you say adult male, are you referring to in like a biological sense?
Yeah, male is in sex.
Um, I don't know that I would have any, because I think that it's kind of like, I'm not really like a biology expert, so I don't really know. I think we can use like age kind of as a proxy, and we can say that, oh well, you're hormonally developed, but it's like, okay, well, at what point, are you in 1 millisecond you're a girl, and then in the next millisecond suddenly you have enough hormonal development to where you're a woman. I don't know that there's like a fast hardened line that I can distinguish there.
I mean, like the transition itself is like puberty, but
Yeah.
I'm referring to there's an adult male in front of him. What can you
Hmm.
refer to him as that would exclusively mean that fact?
Like what do you mean?
Like, there's an adult male, you want to communicate that you're looking at an adult male because you're gay.
Hmm.
No.
Hmm.
You want to communicate that there's an adult male in front of you. to somebody
Mhm.
else, say you're on the phone,
Sure.
what do you refer to him as that exclusively denotes that? That only means that he's an adult male. That has no other meaning.
Um, like are you asking like if I would refer to him as a man?
Well, I think man is the obvious choice because I think
Mhm.
man is the most fitting term to
Yeah.
exclusively denote the maturation of an adult male.
Mhm.
But you're playing a different language game to
Mhm.
where man is this package deal term of maturation, sex, and gender.
I think that it might make more sense for cis women or for cis men and women to use sort of the biological markers in the same way that we do generally. But I think that because trans women are kind of this edge weird case, I think that using girl versus woman to describe a trans woman or whatever, I think that probably using more abstract things like just age would make more sense because again, we also use abstract things like age to refer to girls and boys, even cis girls and boys,
Mhm. So would you
right?
just?
Yeah.
I'm
So
asking for like a phrase. So it'd be like, are you just talking about like cis man? You would refer to him as a cis man.
uh, sure, yeah, yeah.
Okay. And then likewise, uh, do you have a more fitting term to exclusively denote the ideal actions, performances, appearances, expressions, and feelings of a man?
Um, a more ideal term.
No, no, no. A term to exclusively denote the ideal actions, yada yada. The ideal social
Well,
behaviors
I don't
and
really. Yeah, I
feelings
don't.
of
I
behavior.
mean, I don't know that I would because I think you're roping in kind of a value judgment with idea. I mean, I think I have certain things that I might say are probably more ideal for men and women to do, but I'm not really putting a value judgment on like, oh, it's ideal for women to be in the kitchen or whatever. Like I'm not adding
I'm
that as a
referring
part of my
to
argument.
relative to cultures. So,
Hmm.
relative to Western culture, there's a set
Hmm.
of stereotypical ideals in all of these things. Relative to
Well,
Thai culture, there's differences. Relative to blah blah blah, there's other differences. But do you have a term to
I
denote these differences?
I think what makes someone an ideal woman is going to be very a lot more subjective than what makes someone just a woman.
Yeah, but I'm
Pack it up,
asking
you
like
lost. Who? Me?
Uh, I, my
I think he's
point in
referring to
asking
me,
these,
but
yeah, my point in
hmm
asking you these two questions is, I, my answer for the each would be men would be a the most fitting term to denote the maturation of an adult male, and
hmm
masculinity would be the most fitting term to exclusively denote the ideal actions, performances, appearances, expressions, and feelings of men. And that is why I think that the language game that I'm using has greater utility of communicating information. And
what do you mean by ideal?
ideal is
Ideal
just
according to
culturally
whom?
relative. Like in
Well, yeah,
the
but like right. So like leftists would say
so
that there is no like ideal
yeah,
woman.
they're gender
There's just
abolitionists.
women and men. No. Some of them aren't even gender abolitionists, and they'll say this. They'll say there are men and women, but there's not this whole idea of like an ideal man and woman.
I'm
Like
not talking about
I
like
feel
an
like
objective
you
ideal.
roping in like the ideal is kind of like I feel like that's a separate question because I'm
I'm
not
not
talking about like the ideal woman or man. I'm talking about just what makes someone a man or a woman.
I'm not talking about an objective ideal. I'm talking about an intersubjective ideal. So before you were talking about the behaviors of women, and I was asking, are
Hmm.
you talking about the median behaviors? Are you talking about the average behaviors? Are you talking about this
Hmm.
platonic form of behaviors? And I'm contrast those ideas, those possible forms, with um, the idea that cultures across space and time have had different conceptions of these ideals of behavior with
Hmm.
varying levels of similarity, and individual men and women across history into the present act out, perform, appear, express, and feel varying levels or ratios of these ideals. So
Hmm.
every person is different. You can have an extremely masculine woman, you can have an extremely feminine man. Um,
Hmm.
that doesn't mean that behaving masculinely is to behave femininely, and that doesn't mean that behaving femininely is to behave masculinely. Um,
I agree that one's own perspective on something doesn't necessarily is not the only relevant factor, but I do think that there is a difference between someone who, like, for instance, um, okay, here's a question. Why do you think that someone who might perform in very, very masculine ways, like let's say like there's a tomboy, right, who performs masculinity in a lot of ways. Why do you think that they subjectively still would call them feel like a woman versus a trans person who does all the same shit, but you know says in their but it's like no, there's a difference here. There's
because
a
I
difference
think
between I do act very, very femininely, but I feel very, very differently in my own. I feel very, very differently than someone who is just likes to fucking play with trucks or whatever and is a girl.
I think this gets a little bit away from the proposition, but I'm good with it. A trans woman specifically tries to identify as a woman as an attempted solution to their gender dysphoria.
Mm-hmm.
They feel suicidal, and they think
Mhm.
that making themselves more feminine is a solution to that suicidality. I think they are in error.
Well, I think it's more them behaving in ways that represent how they would want to behave, right?
Well,
Like
it
for
isn't just
instance,
that they want to behave.
like for instance, well,
It's about
so
social
I
acceptance as an identity.
well, yeah, that too. It's like, well, they'd want to behave that way, and they'd like to be put into the identity group that makes the most sense to them. Or
I think
well, I would argue that just makes the most sense in general. But like, I would say that like, so for instance, you can have a very, very masculine woman, right? But that doesn't want to wear men's clothes. That would, or that does a lot of other things that would, for a trans person, would cross them over consciously into that threshold of I'm at this point I'm not just a ultra masculine, or I'm not just like an ultra feminine man. Like, I'm at the point where I'm beyond that. I'm to a point where the identity category woman makes the most sense for me. Like it like you can have
what do you mean? Again, when it comes to
masculine.
when it comes to making the most sense, I think they are motivated by a desire to alleviate their gender dysphoria. I think
Yeah.
that they are under the belief that the way to alleviate their gender dysphoria is through this not only acting femininely, because otherwise they would just cross-dress, they would just engage in these feminine behaviors. They would cry at Beyonce or Taylor Swift's new album or something else like that. Otherwise, but you asked specifically why they want to identify as women, if I remember correctly, is
Yeah.
for the social expectations of them to behave femininely. Not just that they are acting counterculturally against the culture. They want the culture to be on their side. They want to change reality
Yes.
around them so that they are expected to behave femininely because they think it's a solution to their issues. And I
Well,
don't
it's
think
not.
it is.
Well, it's not changing. It's not. It's not changing reality. It's they want people to. It's them wanting people to correspond to reality in the sense that what it makes most sense to use language for to describe
What is
what I am.
reality?
What my identity actually is. What is
What is
reality?
reality? Yeah. Is reality
just
what's in
gonna
their
go
head,
into
or is reality what's outside?
I don't know that I feel like that's kind of a weird dichotomy to define. Like, is truth what's in your head, or is truth what's outside? That's kind of a weird way to describe something like that.
Because something that I heard you say is like they want everybody else to conform with reality, but what makes them, from the example of the boy, what made him not a girl is because his internal feelings and desires and intuition did not align with being a girl. And so this adult, this trans woman, has these internal feelings, desires, and what was the other one? Intuition that
Mhm.
um, is feminine, and so you would suggest that this person is a woman. This person,
Mhm.
and then when I described them wanting to change reality in, in terms of changing everybody else's behavior around them, you're saying no, they want those people to change with reality, as if reality was referring to those internal intuitions and feelings and ideas. I think that's backwards.
Um, well, it's not that like again, it's not that like it's just them because you could hypothesize an example where let's say there's an example of someone who not only behaves in all the ways, like let's take a biological man who behaves in all the way or behaves in all the ways that we would typically associate with femininity, right? To the extent that, again, I would call them a woman, you wouldn't, but whatever. They engaged into to that extent. Um, oh fuck, I lost my train of thought. God damn it! Shit, fuck. What was I gonna say? Oh yeah, we are actually okay. We're almost at the 2 hour mark. Do we want to table it here?
Sure. Are you if anyone's in chat, what do y'all think? Who won? I think civil offense voted.
Well, I think most people here are not on my side anyway. So um,
Just a sort of like epic
but
rap
but I
battles
but
of
I think
history.
well the thing is I think that I think that it might be more productive if we do have another debate after this, because
Mhm.
specifically so I can sort of sit
I
back and
think
kind of
maybe on a
think
different
about your
resolution.
position. Yeah, maybe a different resolution, because I think that we seem to agree on the premises. I think we just disagree on like what's specifically useful.
Mhm.
Um,
I think I think maybe
but
getting into gender dysphoria might be interesting.
yeah, it might. Yeah.
But I don't think the pronouns are all too interesting because I think like pronouns have to do with gender. I'm just saying that gender is femininity rather than being a woman. Um,
Hmm.
and then what else? Um, prob yeah, I'd say gender dysphoria would probably be the next interesting topic.
Yeah, I think gender dysphoria. Um,
Or
I
we
think we
could just
might.
talk about like actual issues.
Well, I think we could, yeah. I think we could probably do one on like language. I think the language game thing might be the most apparent here to get into, because I think that now that I'm more familiar with your argument, I can maybe like kind of have some time to sort of parse out,
Yeah.
um, a sort of way of deconstructing what you're saying here, because I think I might also just be a little confused as well. Um,
We're gonna debate
uh,
that. I actually need to read Wittgenstein.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that we kind of agree when it comes to language, because I think that we both at least we both agree that like language is something that should be a tool as a use.
Yeah, the meaning of language is its use.
Yeah, exactly. As what's most useful and beneficial, right? And I think that I do agree with that. I just again would argue that the terms woman obviously more are better used to describe gender. But I think the other thing too is like the sex gender dichotomy, because I think if I'm not mistaken, you don't believe in the sex gender dichotomy. You just think that there's
No, I do.
sex and gender is. Oh, you do.
I'm saying that femininity is different than being female. I'm saying that femininity is the gender, and that's distinct from
Yeah. Okay. I see.
the
Okay.
sex female. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. I think it was a good discussion. I think I might be able to parse out better. I don't want to say better arguments, but sort of. Um, I think because I think we've just been kind of going in circles for a little bit.
Mhm.
So I think that what might be better is, now that I'm kind of familiar concretely with what you're arguing and you're familiar with what I'm arguing, we might be able to have another debate where we're not just going in circles for a half hour or an hour.
Perhaps.
Yeah. Um, But yeah, is anyone else? Okay, yeah, we got one person watching. There's more debaters than viewers. That's amazing. But yeah, damn, that was a good discussion. That was a good discussion.
Who
Um,
won? Who's next? You decide.
I think basically, I think most people are just not going to be on my side in general, but you know that's okay.
I hope I gave the my side justice. I think it's a lot more rigorous than the mainstream right, and I hope that people on the left can um, see where I'm coming from with this.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. I think that I mean, as far as my position too, of course, I think that the sort of the straw man that people place on the trans position generally is pretty flawed. And also I don't agree with the gender abolitionists either, so that's a whole other thing. Maybe you could debate a gender abolitionist too.
Oh boy.
Well, actually, you know what could be fun, because I think that Stratino and Marcus are gender abolitionists and we're not. We could
Boo.
for the next debate, maybe we could team up.
No,
Against
not
them.
2v2. 2v2s are terrible.
2v2s are terrible. I've never done one. Are they really that bad?
Yeah, it's just like we've had a four-person conversation before. It's just like one person babbles on forever, and then the other three are just like waiting.
Yeah, it's fair. Oh, wait! But before we end, we had a Meds question. The
Oh yeah,
the Hulk Hogan.
Which is gayer.
Do we want to talk about that?
sure.
Okay. Do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first?
Are we just at?
Well, I think what he
is the
says. I think
question
this
just
is
like-
male Megan Fox. I think it's Megan Fox with a dick and Hulk Hogan with a vagina.
Yeah. Is it just like
Yeah.
which one is
What would you rather
gayer
fuck?
to be attracted to?
Well, I think it's which one would you rather? If you had to fuck one of them, which one would you fuck or
Abstinence.
have sex with them? You know? Abstinence. Yeah.
You
Well,
would
again,
not
assuming
fuck.
well. Assuming
I'm
this is a
married.
world where you're not, yeah, I feel like it's an inappropriate question to ask since you're married. Yeah,
I think gayer, like which one is gayer, will suffice.
which one's gayer? Yeah, I think.
So the Megan Fox with who's Megan Fox but a biological male
Mhm.
is the essence of homosexuality more than Hulk Hogan but a biological female because it is the same sex and homosexuality is same sex attraction.
Okay.
The relative levels of femininity and masculinity between the two don't change that. But it is a lesser homosexual act to be it is a lesser homosexual attraction to be attracted to masculinity than it is to be attracted to a male. So there's your answer. It's gayer to be attracted to the male Megan Fox.
I think here would be my answer. I think it would be gayer, like in a biological sense, but in a gendered sense, maybe not, because in the essentials of like when we use the term gay, that's the other question: is like, are we using the term gay to refer to biology or gender? Like if you get hard on by like a pair of boobs, even if those boobs are like on a biological man, does that make you gay? You know what I mean? So in some sense, maybe, because you are still getting hard at like a biological man, but on another sense, well, you're still looking at boobs.
And that's what I'm
So
saying.
it's like,
it
yeah.
is more gay to be attracted to the male than it is to be attracted to masculinity.
Oh, it's more gay. Oh, interesting. Okay, so you're saying that it's more gay to be
That's more
attracted.
so to the essence of what gayness is.
Interesting. I think I might actually disagree because I think it's probably less like the essentials of gay, to be less attracted to the masculine features as opposed to like what chromosomes you technically are.
Well, I think you need to stop looking.
Because
it's
like my dick isn't getting hard at like because of someone's chromosomes. My dick's getting hard because I see tits or I see a hot girl's face.
But it's
right?
still homosexual.
I mean, yeah, I think I would agree in some sense, yeah, but I don't think that. But I think in another sense it really isn't because you're actually being you're as a man you're still attracted to the essentials of what it biologically would make sense for you to be attracted to.
Dude, you need to stop watching pornography. It's messing with your brain.
No, I'm just making an argument as to like what counts as.
He's
Okay,
not even denying it.
so you think no. No, I'm not denying or confirming of my personal life with you or with the stream. What I'm saying is that you're saying that it's gayer to be attracted to someone who's technically a male, even if they look exactly like a female.
Yeah, because that's the essence of homosexuality, same-sex
Mhm.
attraction.
Mm-hmm. So you've never God, where do I want to? I was gonna say, so you've never seen someone who you never like taken a second glance at someone who looks really feminine, but then when you zoom in closer, it's like, oh, they do look more masculine. Were you gay for that? Like if your initial instincts were like, oh, that person has like a curve or whatever, and like like that meme where it's like damn, is that damn, she bad, is that Frost? And then it like zooms up and it's like it's like a guy, even though the ass kind of did look like a girl. Was that guy gay for like instinctually thinking about like, oh, I mean that looks like a girl's ass, that's hot?
I don't check women out. I'm married.
Well, no, I know, no, but let's say before you were married, right?
No.
or actually, haven't not even you, just like just that example of the streamer guy, right? Who was like, oh look, it looks like a hot piece of ass or whatever, but then it's like they zoom up and it's a guy and it's like, oh shit, never mind.
That's gay.
Okay, even if he says, oh shit, never mind.
It's for the moment that he was like, ooh, for the moment that he
Because
was
my
being
thing is
attracted to the same sex, that was gay.
But my thing though is that like if it looks exactly like a girl's ass, it's like it's kind of like you're being tricked, right? Your mind's kind of being tricked because it's like, yeah, technically they're not a guy, and you're not attracted to that, but you are attracted to non-math. You're attracted to feminine features, which could be on men. But if you're not given all the relevant information, you might look at a certain thing and be like, oh yeah, that's attractive.
The subject of your attraction is still a male.
Yeah, that's true. So again, I think it's like gay in some sense, but it's not gay in another sense. So, but that would kind of be my argument. Wait, we got new comments.
And cats.
The senses are fallible. I'll test. What, dude? I'm not telling on anything. I'm just making a logical assumption. Like I don't think I don't like. Let's say a guy who like doesn't watch porn or anything or whatever. A guy sees an ass or sees a pair of tits, independently of knowing whether they're on a guy or girl biologically, they're like, oh, that's attractive, and then they zoom out. It's like, oh shit, wait, I just realized that is a guy. I don't think that's really that crazy. That's not. I don't feel like that's like a sign that you're like you want to fuck dudes or anything. Which I think that when we're using the term gay, we usually would refer to like people who like want to fuck dudes or are attracted to dudes. Like you can be attracted to the physical.
To a dude there.
Well, I would say that they're attracted to the physical characteristics in spite of the fact that they're like on a dude, right? It would be like I'm attracted to Megan Fox in spite of the fact that she has a dick, not because she has
like
a dick.
Denial at this point, you know.
I think that if you're attracted to Megan Fox with a dick, like you got more attraction because she had a cock, then yeah, sure, I think that would probably make you more gay. In some sense. But I think, or that would definitely make you more gay in some sense. But I think like just zooming in on like a pair of tits that you don't know is on a guy or girl, like in that scenario, what if you just don't know, right? Should you just in case you don't want to be gay, you just look away?
I mean, like you risk being gay, like literally.
Yes, but you risk in that case you'd risk being gay, like any kind of. Well, not all the time because those scenarios aren't really that common. But yeah, you would risk being gay looking at anything then.
Yeah, don't look at porn on the internet.
I'm not saying look at. I'm saying you realize you can look at women outside of porn, right?
Yeah, don't be a boy.
Like if you see a pretty girl walking down the street or something, like yeah, like I mean.
Don't think lustful thoughts of people you aren't in a relationship with.
Well, okay, but I'm assuming that you've thought about lustful thoughts about someone who you weren't in a relationship before you got into the relationship with them. That's why you wanted to get into the relationship with them in the first place, right?
Yeah,
It's like saying like
I was
don't
a
find
very
me.
sinful
It's like saying like
I was
don't
a
find
very
me.
sinful person in the past. I
Well,
did
no, no,
not
well,
living a good
well,
life.
okay. Well, here's my question: is like, did you find your wife attractive before you dated her?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So, but you just said don't get attracted to, don't look and be attracted to other
No, no,
people
no,
that
no.
you're not in a
I said
relationship
don't
with.
think lustful thoughts. That doesn't lead. Like, don't leer at someone lustfully. Don't,
Well,
yeah, don't like imagine, or how would you say? Yeah, just don't be sexual with people you aren't in a relationship with,
um,
including
like
including a perceiving sexually.
perceiving. I mean, I guess I would say that like I think I can kind of get what you're saying. Like, yeah, if you're not in a relationship with someone, like it's probably not good for you to like constantly be fantasizing about like a bunch of like about fucking them and a bunch of stuff like that. That's
It's very
probably
porn
a,
brain.
it's yeah, it's like definitely going beyond the pale of like probably what's appropriate. In the same way, it's like talking about sex in certain ways with your guy friends probably is there's probably a line that should be drawn there at some point.
Yeah.
But I think like looking at someone attractive and then your body physically responding to that and you enjoying the sight of them when you're not in a relationship with them, I don't think in all contexts is bad. When you're not in a relationship, because again, I think that's
Well,
how
who said
attraction builds in the first place.
homosexuality was bad to
Like,
begin with?
I think that's, huh?
Who said homosexuality was bad to begin with? I'm just
Wait,
saying
what
it's
is
homosexual.
what is homos? Oh, wait, well, I was gonna say what is what did that have to do with? Because I thought we were just talking about like what we were attracted or like what's okay to be like what are the right responses to attraction or should you be attracted to certain people
I mean, we can get into
given
a
your
discussion
status?
of how much of a virtue or vice homosexuality is, but that's going to take a lot longer.
That
We should
would,
cut
yeah,
that
and
off now.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, but yeah, that was a great discussion.
Should I give
And I
my
think
closing
and I think
remarks first or yours?
um oh, I didn't even have a closing statement
Uh,
actually. Did you have a closing statement?
I'll come up with a closing statement on the fly of I think throughout this discussion, you were Soy Jack and I was Giga Chad,
Okay.
asking you the most amazing questions. No, but I appreciate the conversation. Uh, my uh, I think that we were by our opening statements, um, we were kind of pointed in the same direction, but I
Hmm.
think I made a bit of a harder to attack point than you were expecting in claiming the femininity to be the genders, because I think that came up with the discussion of pronouns and the references of um, people as she, her, so on, so forth.
Hmm.
And then I sort of deconstructed your hypothetical in a way that didn't seem too satisfactory to you. But I think this is a lot of fertile ground for a future conversation, and I really
Hmm.
appreciated the conversation with you. And I thought you did a good job with what you had to work with in the
With
incorrect
what I
position that you
yeah.
adopted.
Yeah. You did taking the wrong position. You did what you could with the shitty position that you hold. Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate the compliment. Yeah.
But I appreciate you having me on, and
Hmm.
thank you very much.
Yep. Totally. I don't know what even closing statement I would make besides the fact that I think that the main sticking point for me next time would be the sort of hypothetical example that I gave you because I think your move to just reject the hypothetical, I think it's like
Well, I wouldn't say
I think
just.
that
We
leads you
spent a
into
lot of time. I
well
spent a lot of
no
time
no no
talking
yeah
about
no I
it.
mean yeah we had a lot of discussions about other things than that but I think that that's one of the sticking points that I would probably um, jump on yet again is that I don't think that rejecting the hypothetical makes sense here. And I would also argue that um, given not only that sex and gender are distinct, but that there's a certain threshold at which the pure using purely femininity versus masculinity. There's a point there at which that doesn't work, and I think that the language that we use, for women, even in our daily lives, does not make sense in the way that you're describing it, and I don't think that has as much social utility as you might think. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
Given the agree to disagree, I think that we're at, and given how you took the affirmative, I win by default. Woo!
Okay, woo! The Chad versus Soy Jack meme yet again.
Roll credits.
Roll credits.
How do you like the Hulk Hogan, Megan Fox thumbnail?
That was fun. That was
Yeah.
fun. The
Yeah.
Hulk Hogan Megan Fox thing.
Awesome. Right.
I'm not gonna choose if he's asking which one I'd rather fuck. I'm gonna not say which one in order to not
I think we know.
expose whether or not I'm gay or straight.
I think we know. But
Bring them both back.
no.
All right. I think it's a good place to end
Yeah.
it. All right. Well, hey, thanks everyone for tuning in. Thanks for getting both of our perspectives. I think it's going to be really, really good to sort of go back for part 2, because I think that now that we both understand each other's positions a lot more, we can sort of craft maybe a more sort of, I don't want to say better arguments, but arguments where we might have more ways of not talking past each other per se.
Yeah.
So yeah, thanks everyone for tuning in, and this was really fun, and you guys have a good night.
Thank you.